Well, did I just hear Tai?
Oh, Al, when do I get to tell the world how much I hate you?
Right now, you just did.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, that's it. Well, good evening, everybody.
Howdy do.
I'm
sorry, Ty, that Dr. Nick Matheny got caught in traffic, so you're stuck with me.
You know, Nick and Julio here together, I think I would just explode.
Oh,
me too.
Nick was our A-team doctor, and then we pulled in 2 B teams to
My shirt's not nearly as tight as his.
I mean, if you balance it at Broward or FIU, the University of Miami has our
too much.
A-team.
Lies.
That's too much. Lies, I say. Well, we got lots of news here tonight. It's going to be a full show.
Let's do it.
All right, well, welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Thursday, November 11th, 2021, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you're going to see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots Magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. We bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. Let's welcome anchor Dr. Tai Houser. He is an associate professor of English and Humanities at Broward College. Additionally, he teaches for extended periods of time at international colleges in China, India, Spain, Bolivia. And good evening, my arch nemesis Tai.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too. Let's welcome anchor David Hopkins. David is known in South Florida for his charity work, especially that within the leather community. He is also part of the production team here at the Happening Out Television Network, helping to bring your favorite shows to life. Good evening, David.
Good evening, and speaking of leather and charity, Leather Mass Ball 16 is the Friday after Thanksgiving. You can see the image on screen now. You can go to eaglebarwm.com to purchase tickets.
Nice.
Next, let's welcome anchor Dr. Julio Capo Jr. We've got 2 doctors. We're better than Fox News. He's a history professor and deputy director of the Wolfsonian Public Humanities Lab at the Florida International University. He specializes in the history of race relations and immigration in the United States, as well as LGBTQ plus studies. He's an author of a book called Welcome to Fairyland, Queer Miami Before 1940, and curated a new exhibition called Messages from a Pandemic, AIDS Graphic Communication. Good evening, Julio.
Hey, happy to be here. Let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro, a 1999 inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 2 short story collections and 5 books of poetry. As an entertainment journalist, his celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites. And his screensaver movie review column can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco's Bay Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and a whole lot more. Good evening, Gregg.
Greetings and salutations. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Veterans Day, Thursday, November 11th.
Well, let's begin by queering up gay culture. Is fatphobia and judgment what men deal with in gay bars? Chicago resident and TikToker Ziggy Tyler recently shared a video that has struck a chord with people across social media. In the video, Tyler tells viewers that he's worked up the nerve to go to a gay bar by himself for the very first time, and he's very excited. The video cuts to a close-up of him drinking a cocktail and looking around nervously. Tyler says that people have been giving him dirty looks, but despite that, he's spotted a cute guy he wants to approach and talk to. He decides to go for it. From there, the video cuts to Tyler, now outside the club, visibly crying while walking down the street. It's truly a heartbreaking video that anyone who's ever put themselves out there only to be rejected or who's felt judged for their appearance can identify with. We'll show it to you. Watch this.
I worked up the courage to go to a bar by myself for the first time. I'm very excited. People keep giving me dirty looks, but there's a cute guy I want to say hi to.
I didn't even finish my drink. I just straight up left. Because I walked up to this dude that I thought was cute. And I was trying to like say hi. He said I was too fucking fat to try to be flirting with people, so I just left instead. So definitely not gonna be doing that by myself again.
I haven't been to Chicago. I have not necessarily heard great things about the bar community there, especially if you are not white. And that is one of the points that gentleman has brought up on his social media, that as a larger brown person, it's very difficult for him to socialize. I tell him, come to South Florida, because I can walk in any bar down here and have a good time. Even the ones I don't necessarily like, I still can have a good time.
But there still is a real stigma, I think. I mean, like, I know someone who calls them the fats. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's a real thing that we need to get over.
And I worry, you know, it's not unique to Chicago, certainly, right? So I mean that this is a pandemic. That is that fatphobia, that all sorts of racism and transphobia, all forms of hatred exist within the gay community, the LGBTQ community broadly, and that we got to do better.
And it really does not speak highly of gay culture on the whole. It's really very sad, and I hope he does find Mr. Right.
Yeah. Let's say his name again, Ziggy Tyler. We're reporting you on Queer News tonight, and there's a reason. You're completely worthwhile, and you cannot forget that for a second. One of the things that's very disappointing to me in watching this video is we report so many stories. We've reported over 3,000 stories at Queer News tonight, and one of the top stories that we report against the other side, if there's another side, Republicans, the Trumpsters, etc., and so on, is that we want respect, and we want equality, and we want to be treated fairly. And this issue in terms of race in our own community, our reach out in terms of how we deal with trans, how privileged white gay men deal with lesbians, and this issue in terms of body positivity and body image is a very poor reflection on the LGBTQ community. At a time when we're asking for more from the broad community.
Yes.
It is hypocritical and a contradiction. And it's something that we need to talk a lot more about in our community.
Be best, Al. Be best.
Yeah.
Next, we'll queer up education. Kansas becomes Fahrenheit 451 by removing The Handmaid's Tale and 28 other books. The Goddard School District in Kansas has removed more than 24 books from circulation in the district's school libraries. And if you're saying to yourself that banning books is usually a big red flag in dystopian movies and novels, you would not be alone. Even more ironic, one of the targeted books includes The Handmaid's Tale, a book about a dystopian society that began to crumble after the government banned certain books. The Kansas School District pulled the 29 books after one parent complained about The Hate U Give, a novel about the aftermath of a police officer killing a black teenager. The parent then submitted a list of books he also questioned, and district officials agreed to halt checkouts of the books from the library while they investigated them. The books in question include many prize-winning books relating to race, gender, or sexuality, and the schools claim that the information in the books may be dangerous.
Didn't we just do a story last week about Kansas's statewide pride? So it feels like one step forward and 5 steps back.
And this is going to be this is the next major battle, whether it's the attack on critical race theory or what we can have and what we can't have in our curricula. I mean, that this is very clearly a larger agenda. Also, the content, there's actually massive LGBTQ content in The Handmaid's Tale, for example, like the gender traders that Margaret Atwood wrote into, like there's just so much at stake here, and this is something we really need to push back on, because this is not going away.
It's not the content's not just in books. It's like it's all over media everywhere. So I'm not sure why we would be signaling out books that this one guy finds objectionable, first of all. And haven't we already ruled the First Amendment on this anyway? Like, let's get over it.
It's like these people either didn't read the books and understand the lessons in them, or are intentionally sticking their head in the sand to avoid the lessons in those books.
Yeah. And that to me is probably top of the pyramid. Critical race theory was one of the 2 or 3 major issues in the Virginia gubernatorial race. And they do not teach critical race theory in Virginia. So it was just repeated over and over and over again. Oh wait, somebody paid attention to the Donald Trump playbook. And did it work? Yes, it did. Second, it's interesting to me because the people that did it in this school district, and it could happen anywhere in Kansas, we're focusing on you for a very specific reason. You probably didn't read. And that's why you banned a book, because you didn't read it. And that is simply ignorance. And the last thing that I would say is to your school district, your school district in Kansas, it's only a matter of time of who decides. And so if you want to create a culture war, at some point, culture war will change back against you. There will be more gay people, there will be more LGBTQ people, there will be more black people, there will be more brown people. And then they will make the decision, like they have in Broward County, Florida, to go, oh wait, we're going to ban your books. It goes both ways. Books should never be banned.
Well, now we're going to queer up politics. Speaking going both ways, the Mormon Church's capital city now has a majority LGBTQ city council. 4 out of 6 city councilors in Salt Lake City will be LGBTQ people after this week's election, making the group a majority on the council. The election results are being highlighted as an example of how far acceptance of queer people has come. Utah, a red state with deep ties to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is not a bastion of LGBTQ rights, but the state has made remarkable strides with the blessings of the church. Salt Lake City, in particular, has led the pack. There are currently only 6 out politicians in elected office in the entire state. That means Salt Lake City has 4 out of 6 of all LGBT elected politicians in Utah.
What is going on in Salt Lake City?
They've got it both ways. They're super religious and they've got a super gay population. It's such a weird...
They had a gay mayor in Salt Lake City.
But we can't forget Prop 8. We can't forget the funding of Prop 8 by the LDS. This is a nice step towards apology, but I'm not forgiving yet.
But beyond the forgiveness, I hear you loud and clear. My question is broader than that. This is not a city council making a decision. This is not a university going, let's have diversity. These are elections where the majority of people in the city of Salt Lake are voting for LGBTQ people. What's going on?
I actually feel like it is kind of the best of both worlds. The Mormon Church is always going to be backwards and ridiculous. That's just how they are. But they seem to be pulling out of the politics, which is what churches should be doing. And letting, the church isn't running the government anymore. The people are stepping up and taking control. But the Mormon Church is still an integral part of the city. The Mormon Tabernacle Choir, their Christmas concerts, they're still amazing cultural events. But I think people are actually starting to recognize a separation between church and state, which is the way it should be. It's great to see whatever way it's going, that diversity is being embraced. in that town.
I'm happy that this story came right after the, that we after the Kansas story. That is that we get to see those side by side, because this is layered, and we have to make room for people to grow, right? That is, if we are always just kind of critical of people's past behaviors, we need to be able to make room for growth and for progress, for people to learn, right?
Would it be too soon to say, when I saw this headline and read about this story, I thought that they were talking about the Mormon boys videos here?
I think that's something else.
That's probably something else. Okay.
Speaking of, well, actually, I don't know. Now let's queer up business. Watch as Target employee shuts down anti-LGBTQ Heckler. A new anti-gay video is going viral for all the right reasons. In the video, the person filming, who the internet has dubbed Darren the Karen, is in a Target store trying to get people to speak out against a pride shirt he found on the rack. He goes to one employee, the hero of our story, and asks her, "Do you guys support the satanic pride propaganda?" Her reply shows she was probably made aware of him by customers and is already over it, as she deadpans, quote, "Yeah, both, Satan and pride." She and an undercover loss prevention officer, I should note, who our production, David, has the hots for, walk Darren out, and he keeps getting more upset when people say they support pride. Let's watch it.
They're gonna call the cops on you. Oh, I hope they do. Hey, do you guys support the satanic pride propaganda?
Yeah, both.
You support it?
Satan and pride.
You support Satan? Mm-hmm. What's God gonna think of that?
I don't believe in God.
Wow. So you think?
Did you need help with something?
You support the propaganda that's targeting the kids?
There's nothing targeting kids.
It's all over kids' TV shows. It's all over. They're targeting
kids
the kids.
Kids can choose to wear whatever they want.
You can't disrupt
freedom of
any more
speech.
people.
Call the police.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, call them.
Okay.
Trespass me. I don't care, dude.
Okay.
Clearly.
You think I care if you trespass? I've done this 1,000 times.
We never said that.
You guys are satanic.
True.
See, open satanic. Satanists, guys. That's what we're gonna get up against. Is open Satanists like her.
To be honest, I'm quite happy.
Hey, excuse me. Do you guys support this?
We do.
Do you guys support the propaganda?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
So you can
It's
please.
satanic, man.
Please ignore it.
Do you know what the real rainbow stands for?
You can just continue.
The real rainbow is from God. The real rainbow is from God.
Okay.
Hey, sir, do you support this propaganda?
Ignore him. Ignore him. Yeah.
Do you support it or no?
No, get out of here.
Yeah.
Asking questions.
Everybody here does. You should probably move somewhere else.
What? I love everything about that video.
It's gratifying to watch this video, isn't it?
Hooray, Target. Boo, white inferiorists.
Can you imagine that happening 20 years ago? Could you imagine really in most stores and most Targets around America having that moment where the sales clerk and the security, the loss prevention officer, basically flatly, without screaming or anything, goes, "Yes, of course we support that," and then walking them out, and most of the people that they walk by go, "Dude, get out!
Get out of here!"
Just ignorant."
But
Can you imagine?
20 years ago, they wouldn't have had the shirt in the store to begin with, right?
Okay.
So that's one thing. But the real rainbow, of course, is the real rainbow is God's promise to never flood the earth, right? But apparently, he's now flooded it with homosexuals.
Yes. The whole video is just over 3 minutes long, and I recommend everybody go watch it because it is great.
Amazing.
Because they're walking past, and he's trying to get people's attention, and they're just all like, "Get lost" and stuff like this. But nobody had any time for him wherever this Target is.
Well, not even 20 years ago. I mean, this is another example of post-Trump life.
Yeah.
This is 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But now these people have permission to act like doofuses.
You know, I have two quick observations before we go on to our next story. First, my warning to Kansas in terms of the book removal, book banning, potentially the book burning. It's just a question of who's in charge. You just watched it in Target. Those are the people that are going to be in charge in your county and vote for things, and you're going to lose. That is your future if you're not paying attention. And by the way, I love this video because as Senator Josh Hawley was walked through the target, that was the response that the senator received. Just saying.
Next, we queer up trans rights. Tragic history, as 2021 is now the deadliest year ever for trans community. With nearly 2 months left, 2021 has shattered the record of transgender homicides in a year, with 45 to date, most of them Black or Latinx, according to the Human Rights Campaign. Last year held the previous record with 44 trans murders. Markeisha Lawrence, a 28-year-old Black transgender woman in South Carolina, was killed on November 4th. In a statement, Tori Cooper, Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative for HRC, called Lawrence's death a tragic milestone for her and for a community that deeply loved her. David Johns, Executive Director of the National Black Justice Coalition, said that providing financial support for Black trans women and decriminalizing sex work, which many trans women must turn to when denied other forms of employment, is an important part of addressing the underlying inequalities that leave trans women of color vulnerable to violence. Lawrence's death comes as transgender communities across the world prepare to honor transgender homicide victims on Transgender Day of Remembrance, an annual vigil on November 20th for those slain living their truths. The somber event often includes a reading of the names of the dead, a list that has grown longer in recent years as anti-transgender violence has spiked due to discrimination that advocates say has been fueled by anti-trans political climate.
And I just want to also pay homage to the other people who aren't mentioned this, who are the huge number of trans individuals who die by suicide every year because of that climate as well. And that's not even a tracked number because so many people are dead named and stuff in their death, which leads them to this suicide. It is a terrible thing that our community needs to open their eyes to and face. I'm very happy that Pride Fort Lauderdale is making Transgender Day of Remembrance a focus on Saturday. They are stopping the celebrations for a moment of silence and to honor these people who are our family, and we're losing them way too frequently and way too early.
And it's an issue that we bring up regularly on this show. Are the LGBTQ doing enough for the T? And that's a question that needs to be answered.
You know, a couple of observations I have. First off, we repeat it in every opportunity that we have. Trans rights are human rights. It's a simple statement, but it is an absolute bullseye of what we should think about in the trans community. I point out you should go back and watch the interview that this show, Queer News Tonight, did with Tori Cooper just 2 weeks ago, and does amazing work for the HRC in the Transgender Project, working for the White House in the HIV first trans woman of color ever to be appointed at the White House. And tonight, at the end of the show, we're also going to bring an interesting interview with the new transgender director at Equality Florida. We have never had greater need for our trans community than we have at this moment. And the one thing that you can do, even if you do not understand trans, is to support our community is by supporting Equality Florida and supporting the HRC. Your donation or your volunteerism to those organizations are standing up for people that are literally being killed in our community.
Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ+ religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
everybody, my name is Eddie Marti Kring, and I'm your field and community organizer for SAVE, Safeguarding American Values for Everyone, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, we finished tonight's queer news headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus Flash News. In LGBTQ plus Flash News, here are the 9 best LGBTQ plus neighborhoods in America. It's been a tumultuous journey since early cradles of queer civilization sprouted in major American metropoles. Yeah. Following World War II. Areas like the Castro, the West Village, and Boys Town have grown, shrunk, and sometimes changed their names to reflect the ever-changing communities that we live in. What hasn't changed is the necessity for gay-friendly cities. According to a 2019 survey by Community Marketing and Insights, the #1 reason LGBTQ people travel is to relax, and for them, relaxing means visiting somewhere they know is queer-friendly, like a well-established neighborhood. So we have a poll on the top 9 LGBTQ plus friendly neighborhoods in the USA. Are these cities that you have visited? Number 9 is Bushwick neighborhood in Brooklyn. Number 8, Andersonville in Chicago. Number 7, the Castro in San Francisco. Number 6, the Marmalade in Salt Lake City. Number 5, Midtown Atlanta. Number 4, love this place, Hillcrest in San Diego, California. Number 3, Short North in Columbus, Ohio. Number 2, Montrose in Houston. And surprise, surprise, number 1 ranked was Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And of course, we always joke here at Queer News Tonight, the gayest place on planet Earth. Congratulations to all of these great neighborhoods across America.
You know, I'd like to point out the fact that the neighborhoods have changed so much considering what people traditionally think of. It's great to see new places like Columbus, Ohio, popping up as gay-friendly.
Salt Lake City.
Yeah. I take a little bit of issue with the reason the story said that we travel so much. I travel because I'm trying to fulfill my list of having sex on every continent.
Wow, it must be a lonely journey.
It warms my heart to see one of my old Chicago neighborhoods, wonderful Andersonville, on that list.
Oh, nice.
Aww. Now I love all this. Like that is, when we need more of these spaces. I feel like increasingly with gentrification, with less affordable housing, we need to make sure that more places like this continue to stay on the map.
I couldn't help but notice that Fairyland, Miami, prior to 1940, didn't make the list.
I didn't, but let's just imagine.
We'll imagine.
Al was there.
LGBTQ plus Flash News. CMA winner TJ Osborne stuns country TV audience by kissing boyfriend live. Watch this.
Brothers Osborne won Best Vocal Duo. TJ Osborne celebrating with a kiss for his boyfriend. Osborne, who announced he is gay earlier this year, thanked the country music community for their support.
It's been a crazy roller coaster of a year for us in so many ways, especially for me emotionally. And to have you all support me, it really does feel like love wins tonight.
Brothers Osborne took home the prize for Vocal Duo of the Year at the 2021 CMA Awards on Wednesday and had their nearest and dearest on hand to help them bask in their win. TJ Osborne, 36, my age, celebrated before accepting the award by kissing his boyfriend, Abby Ventura, while John Osborne, 39, shared a smooch with his wife, Lucy Silvas. The moment was a milestone one for TJ, who publicly came out as gay in February. So happy to smooch a boy on TV. I kissed a boy, and I liked it.
To paraphrase Gaga, baby, I was born this way.
I love that. You know, I did not know who this person was, and he's cute. I'm kind of into it.
Yeah, the history of this moment is they're sitting at the Country Music Association. This wasn't the MTV or the AMAs or even the Grammys. This was country music. Wow, what an accomplishment.
And I couldn't find a long enough clip that I could get without copyright infringement. But after he said, "This show's love wins," it was a standing ovation in the crowd. And to get that at the Country Music Awards is phenomenal. So, speaking of some of my favorite things, LGBTQ flash news. It took 40 years for iconic film fans to notice trans representation. Ridley Scott's 1979 spacebound slasher Alien has achieved cult status for its genre-defining visual effects, depth of characters, and stunning sci-fi realism. But trans reputation doesn't often come to mind. Yet if you look beyond Sigourney Weaver's iconic performance as Ellen Ripley, you'll find a subtle detail that many viewers missed. Among the small crew of the Nostromo is a navigator, Joan Lambert, a brilliant bag of nerves played by actor Veronica Cartwright. By the end of the film, she and Ripley are the ones remaining aboard the doomed ship, left alone to battle out against the xenomorph. Lambert was ultimately killed by the alien when gathering oxygen tanks, but it wasn't her final appearance in the quadrilogy. James Cameron's 1986 sequel Aliens opens with Ripley being debriefed by her employers over the destruction of the Nostromo. Behind her, biographies of each of the deceased flash up on a computer screen. Lambert's file includes reams of personal data like her date of birth, height, weight, and hair color, but one important detail stands out. Under gender, it states female, unnatural, before expanding, quote, subject is dustbin convert at birth, male to female. So far, no indication of suppressed trauma related to gender alteration, end quote. The fact that Lambert is canonically trans has been known among sci-fi circles for years, but the blink and you miss it moments easily overlooked, and many newer viewers are only now discovering this early trans representation. The Alien movies are some of my favorites. I grew up with them. I knew this fact, and I loved when I saw this article trending the other day that this is coming back in and people are seeing it, and I'm like, nope, that's going in the show.
I always love it when we do a story like this and the teleprompter language changes because we know that David is like totally dorking out.
And this makes me love Veronica Cartwright, who played Jack's mother on Will and Grace, even more.
One of the things I love about this is that sci-fi has always been, kind of at the forefront of so many issues, and here's a perfect example of it that is really progressive in so many ways.
Frequently I'm referred to in lots of ways connected with the show over the years as kind of this gay guru. I am completely caught out of the blue by this story, which I love because that's refreshing for me, for our community. Ridley Scott. Thank you so much for giving us this little nugget that, almost 40 years later, we're able to go back to. Just think, this was published, or this film in 1979 was just 10 years after the Stonewall riots. There was no public embracement of the trans community, and you're pushing it into a film. Wow, amazing.
LGBTQ plus flash news. Tom of Finland's Sexy Rare motorcycle series is up for auction. A rare, complete set of signed drawings by famed illustrator Tom of Finland will be offered at auction later this month by Phillips Auctioneers in New York City. Entitled The Motorcycle Series, the 11 commissioned drawings represent an early period in the iconic artist's development and will be sold as a set. Phillips estimates the sale to be worth anywhere between $180,000 to $250,000. Yep. The motorcycle series was commissioned from 1959 to 1960 by Tony Hepworth of Yorkshire. Both a fan of Tom of Finland and an avid motorcyclist, Hepworth sent £25 each month for Tom to create a homoerotic motorcycle-themed series of drawings. The motorcycle series will be on view in New York from November 8th to the 17th at 432 Park Avenue. That's the company's new headquarters. The auction on November 18 will welcome in-person bidding. You can learn more about the auction at www.phillips.com. This is a... I'll go to you, Al. Just Google racial politics in Tom of Finland. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
It's a complicated story.
It's a complicated story. Not complicated for me. I have 2 motorcycles. And I have a Harley. When I look at these pictures, I think, yeah, that's me. Yeah, got it.
So what Julio is alluding to, being politically correct, is Tom of Finland was frequently inspired by the Nazi army's occupation of Poland. And that is, one of the things about fetish is taking things out of your control and embracing it and learning to sexualize it to kind of take back some control. He was a young kid surrounded by hot Germans in uniform. The politics made no sense to him at the point, so it just turned him on.
Julio, what's your upper bid on that?
Oh, goodness. I will not be bidding. I will not be bidding, to be clear.
Vroom, vroom, sputter, sputter. LGBTQ flash news.
What's wrong with you, dude?
I liked it. It was clever.
Okay.
No?
Newsmax host says Pete Buttigieg's full-time job is being gay. A far-right news host is accusing out Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg of treating, quote, being gay like a full-time job, end quote, in an anti-gay rant. Showing a picture of Pete and Chasten Buttigieg with their children, Newsmax host Greg Kelly said, quote, why does he even have a cabinet job? Why would a small-town mayor ever be taken seriously when he runs for president? Quite frankly, it has to do with his orientation, his sexual orientation. You saw it in the movie that he's obviously participating in being gay. I mean, it's almost like a full-time job, end quote. Perhaps the small-penised Kelly feels like maintaining his sexual identity as a job. That's a pretty good sign he may have chosen the wrong one.
Watch this.
Watch this.
How does he get away with all this? I mean, why him? Why does he even have a cabinet job? Why would a small-town mayor be taken seriously when he runs for president? Quite frankly, it has to do with his orientation, his sexual orientation. And here's proof. You can count it up. The New York Times, the Washington Post, Politico, all of them, they could not stop writing about this guy being gay. You saw it in the movie that he's obviously participating in. Being gay, I mean, it's almost like a full-time job. I could care less. And by the way, the first open, out of the closet, if you will, gay person in a presidential cabinet was Rick Grinnell, who served as Director of National Intelligence under Donald Trump. I, by the way, don't think he has much in the way of political skill. Watch this little exchange he had in South Carolina when he was still running for president.
Newsmax should change its name to News Mini because it's so small-minded.
Being gay takes up a lot of time, but between that and the satanic rituals that we have, according to Target,
and brunch,
it's a lot of gayness.
Greg Kelly, congratulations. You make it into the privileged white straight man Hall of Fame. And oh, by the way, in addition to him being gay as a full-time job, Barack Obama was a black full-time job, and Latin full-time job, and woman full-time job. You are what you are, and that is not a job. And you are incredibly ignorant.
I just want to do something that our compatriots over at Fox or Newsmax will not be doing today. And I would like to honor Pete Buttigieg on Veterans Day as a U.S. Army veteran.
Awesome. Oh, very well said. If he wants to know how hard it is to be gay, I think we need to just send him the agenda that we've published. Yes. Because that is multi-volume, and exactly right. He should spend some time reading.
Greg, we're taking over the world. We are.
And that's today's news for the LGBTQ+ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ+ evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us out by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates and share this news with your friends and family.
I hear that I would get the ring.
That was fake.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you're a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and your friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ+ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
Well, if our community is to grow, we must tell these type of stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world, especially Newsmax. And that little school district in Kansas. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out television network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including David Hopkins, Dr. Tai Houser, Dr. Julio Capo Jr., and Gregg Shapiro. With some strange jokes tonight. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end the show, I told you we have one final story.
And that is to queer up trans rights. Queer News Tonight sits down with Nicole Parker from Equity, Florida for a special interview.
Equality, Florida.
For a special interview. Recently, Al Ferguson interviewed Nicole Parker, the director of Transgender Equality at Equality, Florida. They discussed her journey as a trans woman, as well as what Equality Florida does for the transgender community. Watch this.
Well, next up, we have a very special interview with Nicole Parker, the new director of Transgender Equality for Equality Florida. And of course, as you know, Equality Florida is one of America's largest and most important LGBTQ plus equality advocacy organizations. Nicole is a native to Orlando and of Black, Puerto Rican, and Italian descent. At the age of 19, she left her job and childhood home to begin her journey to living authentically. After 3 years of black market hormones and unsafe lifestyle practices, she came back to Orlando to begin her next chapter. Nicole's passion is advocating for human rights, protections for all, and the importance of everyone having a seat at the table. Nicole is also the co-founder and director of operations for the Gender Advancement Project and sits on the board of the Center Orlando. She sat on various nonprofit boards of directors and or advisory councils, including some of the many, including the One Pulse Foundation Memorial Task Force and Orlando's Trans Collective, and many more. Nicole has been nationally recognized by Congressman Darren Soto in honor of LGBTQ plus Pride Month in the Stonewall 50th anniversary, and her biography has even been read into the congressional record. It's a critical time for LGBTQ plus rights, and especially the trans community, and we are excited to welcome Nicole Parker to Queer News Tonight. Nicole, welcome. We're really glad to speak to you because you're new in this appointment. Your predecessor was an institutional name in the trans community for Equality Florida and advocacy, and you're the new girl in town for about 3 months, and we're welcoming you as our first opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you so much, Al. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's begin with your role at Equality Florida. Tell us about what you do in this advocacy position for Equality Florida, and for those 3 people on the planet, and certainly in the state of Florida, that doesn't know what Equality Florida is. Tell us a little bit about what Equality Florida does.
Sure. So I am the director of Transgender Equality. So my goal is to make sure that trans inclusion is weaved through every program area in Equality Florida. Some things that we do are corporate trainings for organizations, small or large, faith-based organizations, law enforcement agencies, you name it. I'm able to go in and have trans competency trainings, and basically to make sure that their policies and procedures are inclusive of trans and non-binary folks, as well as their overall company culture. Some other things that we do is I host the Transgender Trans Action Leadership Academy. And this is incredible because it helps young leaders understand what advocacy is. And we help them kind of hone in on those skills and kind of move them in the direction that they want to move in their advocacy journey. And then we also have our Trans Resource Guide, which is a resource guide with resources filled with all over the state of doctors, mental health counselors, anything that you can think of that are affirming to trans individuals. So there's a lot that we do here at Equality Florida, but I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, you have your hands busy. Let's start at the top in terms of the politics and the health and the children, trans children issues that we're watching. Trans is the most topical subject going on in America, as almost a culture war, and the trans community is being focused on by the right. It must be a very difficult situation to see in 2021 the incredible advancements we have seen from our president, our vice president, from the White House. We're in kind of a renaissance of recognition in the LGBTQ of our community. Meanwhile, the T in our acronym is under full attack by the number of states that have passed very anti-LGBT laws, principally aimed at the trans community. How does it feel to be in this space, 3 months in this new job, leading the state of Florida in trans voice, and seeing so many gains, but your specific community having so many attacks? How does that feel for you?
It's extremely disheartening, and it's scary, if I'm going to be honest. You know, as a trans woman of color, the disproportionate rate of violence that we face is astronomical. And, you know, there's so many attacks that are going on, especially for trans youth, you know, where the trans youth sports ban, the transgender youth medical care ban that has been filed. You know, this is a deliberate attack on youth, and youth should be protected. Youth should be affirmed. There's this narrative that goes around that, you know, that demonizes trans youth, and it's just spread with misinformation and fear mongering, and it's not true at the end of the day. You know, they just want to live authentically. They want to live happily like anybody else. And, you know, the transgender youth medical care ban, if that passes, that makes it a federal offense for doctors to provide life-saving care to youth. And nobody should get in between youth, their parents, and their doctors. If you have children and your child had diabetes, you're going to do everything that you can to get them the affirming care that they need. And this is no different. You know, it's not like people are just pushing their kids to go be on hormones. No, this is life-affirming medical care that is being provided by doctors who are competent in this, and the state should not be creating a roadblock.
You know, Nicole, you opened a door that I'm really curious of your reaction about, talking about healthcare and our trans youth. Last week I did a 4-part series interview with Admiral Dr. Rachel Levine, the Assistant Secretary of Health, the highest Senate confirmed cabinet member in history who is trans. She is a pediatrician. And a massive experience with youth issues in medical care, is just attacked left and right for being trans by the right. I call them the Gang of Three, Tucker and Sean and Laura at Fox News, in terms of how they summarize Dr. Levine, Admiral Levine now, and what is happening to our trans youth. Tell us a little bit about the unique needs that the trans community has, and first, tell us, what do you think about the representation of Admiral Levine in our government and Senate confirmed, and what's your reaction of having that representation for your community and our community?
It is absolutely incredible. I could have never imagined that we would have, you know, someone of our community in such a high level position like that. You know, representation is so important. And when I transitioned 10 years ago, I didn't really see people that looked like me, that had the same experience like me, especially in positions of power. And while there are a lot of things going on in the world and a constant attack on my community, I would be remiss if I didn't celebrate the wins that we have made as a community. Yeah, and it's beautiful to see for youth and for even adults to see that we can be seen as normal. We can, you know, work our way to be put into these positions, because for a long time, the trans community has lived in the dark. You know, I often say the LGBTQ plus, and that acronym, the T is silent, because all the way back to the Stonewall days, trans and non-binary folks were at the forefront fighting for all LGBTQ rights. But then when it's time for, us to fight for the trans community, it seems like the rest of the community disappears. So I'm so excited.
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting when I have the opportunity, we say the names, and Sylvia Rivera was leadership at the Stonewall riots. Marsha P. Johnson was leadership at the Stonewall riots. To your point that often you feel that the T is forgotten. I did also, in the last couple of weeks, an interview with Tori Cooper, representing a trans woman of color at a high-ranking presidential appointment at the White House in healthcare, HIV, and she made it very clear that she feels like the T is too often anonymous in our acronym, and that the first major problem that the trans community has is that the L and the G and the B and the Q do not support and stand up for the T in our acronym in the way that they should. And she was emphatic on that observation. How does that strike you as a leading voice in the trans community and advocacy in Florida? How does that strike you, what Tori Cooper said, and do you agree with it? And if you do, what do we do about it?
I definitely agree with what Tori said. Like I mentioned, I feel that when it's time for us to fight, we as trans folks are at the forefront fighting for all of our rights. But I often find myself having to explain my identity to the L, the B, the G, and the Q. And I mean, if I'm being frank with you, I have heard individuals tell me, oh, I really don't understand why you transition, and you don't have to live like that, and you've kind of gone too far. And for me, I'm taken aback a bit, because I'm like, aren't we a community here? We're all fighting to be seen and to be, to live authentically. And if we're demanding respect from others, shouldn't we be respecting each other in our own community? So if I'm being honest, I have to say I do agree with her.
Yeah, and to make sure that I understand you, you're saying that you don't hear that level of respect from the L and the G and the B and the Q that is needed to help propel the trans community. That's what you've just said.
Definitely, and I can't say the whole. We of course have amazing allies, but if I'm looking at the community in general, I would say for the most part, the L, the G, the B, and the Q seem to fall a bit short when it comes to fighting for us as the trans and non-binary community.
Loud and clear, heard loud and clear. And the month of November is important for LGBTQ+, but especially the trans community. We're getting ready on November 20th to remember the International Transgender Day of Remembrance. Particularly important this week, we've reported at Queer News Tonight that in 2021, unfortunately this week, we've hit an all-time record of violence against the trans community, especially trans women of color, in the number of deaths. What do you think about the intersection of the violence that we're seeing, all-time record high, and the intersection of TDOR on November 20th?
It's so sad and it's so disheartening because it just happens every single year. And I feel like as a community, we're screaming, please see us, please help us. The violence just keeps happening, and lawmakers are just kind of turning a blind eye and not seeing us for who we are. And that's the importance of Transgender Day of Remembrance. This was created because nobody was noticing or even acknowledging what was happening. So we had to come together as a community to honor those who we lost. Because at the end of the day, they were human. They had lives, they had aspirations. And it's up to us to make sure that folks remember that. And they're not just another news story about a trans individual who died. And all that is ever talked about is the time of death. We need to make sure that we talk about who they were and how they lived and celebrate their humanity. Yeah,
your community has helped teach me, say their name, say their name, say their name. And that's what I just heard you say. Well, very well said. Nicole, it's a tough time for the trans community. You're arguably the top voice in political advocacy in our state, now representing your position and Equality Florida. One last opportunity before we finish your generous time in this interview. How can we help? How can we help the trans community? How can the L's and the G's and the B's and the Q's and the allies help your community, and how can we help Equality Florida?
I would just say vote in favor of all human rights. When people ask, what can I do as an ally, challenge your friends and family. And what I mean by that is all of us have been in situations where we've heard anti-trans or anti-LGBTQ, conversations going on. Oh, I don't understand that. Oh, this and that. Challenge them. Ask an individual, why do you feel that way? What is it that you know about the trans community that makes you feel this way? And a lot of the times in those conversations, just you asking those questions and standing up for us will allow folks who are closest to you to maybe look at things a bit differently and realize that at the end of the day, we just want to live happy like everyone else. And while our experience may not be understood from everybody, that's the beauty of humanity, is our diversity, is our differences. And we can't ridicule someone for not fitting into the norm that you feel we should fit in. We should celebrate folks for living authentically.
Absolutely, well said. Nicole tells us that our L's and our G's and our B's and our Q's and our A's need to stand up in voice and support in voting and advocacy for the T in our community. And of course, we remind everyone, this can't be done for free. So go to equalityflorida.org, eqfl.org, and make a donation. Help support. Equality Florida is one of America's most important advocacy organizations, very critically important in the state of Florida to stand up against Tallahassee and our governor and what we see. We have to keep Equality Florida in the fight, and we have to keep our new trans representation at Equality Florida in the fight, and that's Nicole Parker. So go to their website and look at how you can support Equality Florida and Nicole Parker's mission for the trans community and the broad advocacy of Equality Florida. Any final things you would like to say, Nicole?
I just want to, at the end of the day, we are human and we're just trying to live happy as well. And if you don't understand, I encourage you to talk to a trans person, ask questions, befriend a trans person, and I guarantee you will see that we're just like anyone else.
Yeah. Well, this is the first time I've met Nicole, and I completely understand why Nicole is in this new position. You're going to do, I have a feeling, a great job for Equality Florida. It's so vitally important as we approach the midterms. Basically 1 year from now, the T is going to be the culture war point of the tip of their spear, and we need some shields against it. And you are looking at the face and hearing the voice here in Florida of one of our #1 shields against that spear we're going to hear from the Republicans against the trans community and the LGBTQ community. Nicole Parker, a pleasure. We're going to have you back many, many times. I appreciate your time here today at Queer News Tonight.
Thank you so much.
LGBTQ+ news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire